Roll call, please, Pam.
Mayor Grimminger?
Here.
Alderman Skaggs?
Here.
Alderwoman Zerwig?
Here.
Alderman Stupi?
Here.
Alderman Jokers?
Here.
Alderman Steiger?
Here.
Alderman Obenquist?
Here.
Alderwoman Broomfield?
Here.
Alderman Ross?
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of agenda. On the agenda under old business, both of that bill number 3884 and 3885 are supposed to be second readings and not first readings.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Martin, I guess we're down to you.
Okay, it was reported to me, I observed yesterday or the day before, and it was reported to me today that there are chickens loose in the city of St. Genevieve. We have the application forms prepared. We're ready to do business with anyone who would like to get a permit for their chickens. If you see them running around or not, if you know of people who are keeping chickens, please ask them to come in and secure their permit. In the past, I don't know how far past, there was a city administrators in southeast Missouri, the SEMO planning district, would meet from time to time, and they fell out of that habit. So there's an attempt to reorganize that group, and so we had our first meeting down at Cape Girardeau, and about 15 city administrators showed up. It was pretty productive. One of the things we talked about was the transportation enhancement grants. So the DNR is working away on our meeting for the. I'm sorry, and I told you already about going to the transportation enhancement pre-application meeting. You knew that the National Park Service was going to be here holding meetings since our last Board of Aldermen meeting. We had 2 days of meetings with their staff. One day was here, and all stakeholders were involved. And the purpose of that, and I think it served its purpose, was to kind of vet their data. So people who know more about the history of St. Genevieve than they went over what they had found, and there were a lot of corrections were made, which I thought was interesting. And the second day was up at the National Park Service office at Whitehall, the Grant home. The purpose of that meeting was for them to kind of lay out the administrative alternatives and to discuss what the options were. Frankly, they had pretty well already made up their mind, and we just got to discuss what their mind was. It appears, and I don't want to, they haven't done it yet, but they will give a report, and it ought to be coming out shortly. Their findings will be positive. They think highly of our community. But the problem is that the National Park Service has a budget, and when they get a new park, they don't get more money. So the staff feels that they have to always, even if they really think it's a good idea, not recommend it because it doesn't come along with additional appropriations. So they kind of said, even if we recommend a facility in St. Genevieve, or if we talk glowingly about the prospects of a park site in St. Genevieve, we will have this qualifier on our recommendation. So they're going to say it's a great idea, but we don't recommend it. Maybe. I don't know what they're going to say. But it appears to be moving in the right direction. Interestingly, months ago, when they finally had the court decision on redistricting, I had sent a letter to Congresswoman Emerson's legislative director in Washington, apprising him of the study and suggesting that since she was going to be taking over responsibilities for representing St. Genevieve County, that she get someone involved so they don't have to play catch up. And I didn't hear, and I didn't hear, and I didn't hear. And our I was at a meeting where her Farmington office representative who was, and I mentioned it to her, and she didn't. She said she'd look into it, and I get a call on a Tuesday, and she said the congresswoman's going to be in town, tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Could you talk to her? So Congresswoman Anderson came here. I apprised her of what was going on and what our hopes and expectations were. She assigned this woman, Heather Garner, to become part of the process, so she'll be at the table as we go forward with this. I've already informed you about the signs because somebody requested it. The mayor and I met with representatives of Mississippi Lime about the prospect of extending Maple Street through to Highway 61 and their willingness to cooperate without committing to that. They said, well, if you can give me a plan and show what the county's willing to do, what the special road district's willing to do, and what the city's willing to do, and we'll give it consideration. So we didn't get a no, but basically encourage us to proceed with putting a plan together, and so we will be doing that. On the public facilities plan, the engineer recommended and we requested an extension, which I guess we'll get to January. We had a conference call to talk about future needs. So they wanted me to predict what the water needs of the city would be for 5 years and 20 years. Nothing.
Sorry, this is with which department?
With the public facilities plan that Horner and Schifrin's doing for the water and sewer system.
For Horner and Schifrin, okay.
And the 5 years was relatively easy, 20 years. And but their major question was whether our Mississippi Lime will continue to be a customer, and if so, do they have any plans for expansion, which would produce a need for more water. And rather than me calling, I think the mayor's agreed to make that contact, and we'll see what they say. Then finally, I'll highlight that the mayor and I attended the Mississippi Rivers Initiative meeting. What this is, and we learned the history of it today. There's an organization called the Northwest Southeast Institute in Washington, D.C. I don't know. But they had participated in the Great Lakes Initiative, and the idea was to get the cities that border on the Great Lakes together as a coalition to address issues of common concern about the management of the water resource and to speak to Congress with one voice about what needs to be done. So because of floods and drought and the things that have been happening on the Mississippi River, it occurred to someone, I forget who, that the same approach would work for the cities on the Mississippi River. We were told in a call earlier in the month that 10% of the gross domestic product is handled on the Mississippi River, which is huge. And so if the river closes, the economic impact is significant. Now, while the mayor and I recognize that the city per se doesn't have things that we control on the river, many of the citizens of St. Genevieve are dependent upon their jobs in industries that are river-oriented. There's Chem Line or Tower Rock or Mississippi Lime or the ports going in. So somebody from this area needed to be at the table, and the invitation was to the river city mayors. So we went. And it was a lot of kind of seminar kind of information, but in the end, they decided to have an official organization. It's being funded by a grant from the Walton Family Foundation, which will probably fund them for 2 years. Come up with bylaws, set an agenda, and then we can see whether you want to continue to participate over the long haul. There are about 20 mayors in attendance. They've got 40 signed up. They expect to get a lot more as the momentum kind of builds. So,
I think we were we were the southernmost one in Missouri at this point. I
Yes.
think that's what they said.
well, yeah, Missouri. Chester was the only other.
Chester was
on
it.
the river.
I've been doing a lot of research on that too, and for whatever reason, I know I've been doing a lot of research. Panama Canal has just almost completed their expansion. So once the Panama Canal, once it allows those super carriers to be able to go through, or super tankers and whatnot, be able to go through, they're expecting the Mississippi River to maybe even up to double some of their capacity because of transportation going through the Gulf, through the Panama
Well,
Canal.
there's a lot of
So-
conversation about that today.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'd
it's
be glad
it's
to
it's
cover it right now
really
if you'd
yeah.
like to hear it.
I mean, everybody along the Gulf is fighting for these jobs and these ports.
New Orleans
these
is the only
facilities
port that can take
So,
has the 57-foot draft.
right now.
Well, port cities on the East Coast are all
Yes.
working diligently with the idea that New Orleans can only handle so much, so they'll go around Florida and come up to the eastern ports. The idea that was broached today is that if they offload in New Orleans, then they can work it out so they can transfer it to a barge that can use the Mississippi River, and then the ports up the Mississippi River need to be prepared to handle those containerized units. And right now, nobody has the cranes to do it. I mean, even big ports. Memphis doesn't have it. Granite City doesn't have it. So they're talking about, and the mayor of Memphis said, well, we looked into it, and there's this big question of economic feasibility for this whole thing. So nobody's prepared to make the investment because it's so uncertain as to whether it would be feasible in terms of time and handling or offloading onto another barge and bringing it up the river. So that it's being studied now, and they're just not sure they're going to do it. But regardless,
Yeah, I'm curious. I've read a lot about it. It seems that the Mississippi is only going to improve in importance, with the improvement of the Panama Canal. So
You need water in it.
that's the problem. How do we get water in the river? I asked
Well,
the
we
Corps of
got
Engineers
letters
why they
from
couldn't
you,
get
we got
water in the
plenty.
river. But
Who's just Terry?
Yeah.
all right, that completes my report. Yes, sir.
Do you ever hear anything on the guardrail out by Subway?
Uh,
Follow up on that?
I have not heard a word. Terry was in conversation with those people last time we talked.
Yes, sir, it's a state deal, they're just constantly saying we're gonna get to it, it's one of those things that's on our list. I'll commit to touching base with them again, it kind of skips off, we've met with them 2 or 3 times on that and that.
Because there's exposed, we have an exposed sewer line in the right of way.
Yeah, they've talked about getting inmates to come in and lay the rocks in there by hand, and I'm not real familiar with the guardrail part of it, but I will check into it.
I think the guardrail's badly needed, it's just a matter of time before somebody goes down in there.
Those state things like that happen when there's accidents, it's hard to get anything done before there's an accident.
Well, we had that conversation with them. Well, you don't know, but we had this when we were talking about signs, and the guy said, well, have there been any accidents there?
Yeah.
Do we have to wait for there to be an accident to do something? And they said, yeah, pretty much.
First question every time you meet with them, on something safety oriented like that, is somebody got hurt?
Everything's generated by accident reports.
Yeah.
And,
Anybody else? Okay, Terry.
oh, wait a minute, one more thing.
Well,
Excuse me. I'll be on vacation next week. So you got one day to get hold of me for anything you want for the next, you want me to do next week, or before I leave, or while I'm gone.
Who's in charge?
I'm still in charge.
Pam's in charge.
You guys will have my written report at the next meeting. A couple of things I'll tell you about briefly is the engineers are working on the facility plan, as Martin said, and today they were here in St. John reviewing the water plant, looking at future needs, getting ideas for future needs once they determine what the water demands will be for the future. We've been working on sewer manholes. We got, I believe, 6 sprayed this week. We'll continue to do that throughout this cool weather. Continue to change out water meters. That project's going along very well. So we're pleased with that. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about anything.
questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any committee reports? Yes, sir.
Well, on the sign committee, we met Monday and we discussed the map that would go on the bulletin board kiosk. And we talked about the signs and MoDOT. And so we're just providing more information and waiting for MoDOT to get back with us. So that's where we're at.
Anybody else?
Committee met last week and went over a couple topics. Still working on a master plan. So we'll once we get closer to that, we'll submit that to the board.
Okay, last meeting on Channel 798. One of our few things we talked about, one of the things was shuffling of papers on this desk up here, how it's pretty loud on, I know, we've got a lot of papers, but we try to keep it down a little bit, try not to shuffle them too bad. Of course, we talked about our budget and whatnot is going on with us for the coming year. We talked about discussion of adding an additional board member. We are down one board member and tonight we have a resolution on our agenda here to appoint Tish Johnson, I believe. So that would be great. And hopefully, one of the other things that we had talked about was writing of grants, and we're hoping that if she gets appointed to the board, that she could help us with some of that stuff as well. Gary has been working with Big River on some pricing with our internet services, and hopefully at our next meeting we'll have some more information on that. We also, as I spoke before, we have some new videographers on board, a bunch of younger ones. They've been trained, and it's just great to see people coming out and wanting to do some of this stuff. We also sell our Total Info ad, which is a monthly advertisement on there. It runs $150 a month. It's a great value. You're on channel 798 pretty much 24/7. We are filled up until February of 2013, so anybody that wants to get on board can get a hold of Don. You can call the station 883-7675 and go ahead and get on board starting in February. We have another meeting coming up the 25th of this month, so we'll have some more things to tell you next month. Thanks.
Just a little bit of recap of the park board meeting. Talked a lot of this was already reported in the paper on this Frisbee golf course about possibility of trying to make the tee boxes, as you call them, where they'd start at, trying to get something to better identify them. If it wasn't anything more than some landscape timbers with filled in with some rock. Also talked about possibly replacing those because I don't know if they're not necessarily regulation, but that certainly depend on their budget. Talked about Main Street Park. They met down at Main Street Park. Talked about some benches down there and more development of that park. And that was most of the meeting.
Signs on the Main Street restroom.
Signs on the Main Street restroom. I don't know if you've been by there, but they're a lot bigger than what they used to be. Identifying the restroom. So that was the majority of the meeting. Anybody else? And if anybody would like to would like to be the aldermanic liaison to the park board, let me know. I'll love to let somebody attend those. Yes, sir.
There's a tourism meeting next Friday, a week from tomorrow, here at 9:30 at City Hall. Just to let people know if they're interested in coming to that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes of the August 23rd meeting.
Move to approve.
There needs to be corrections on there.
I could,
You got them.
she's
There's
showing
several.
what they
There's
were.
several.
So as amended,
Yes.
that was Joe and Keith. Joe and, did you
Yeah.
say?
John?
John, okay.
You're all right with
Sorry
it as
about that.
amended? Okay. All in
what it
favor?
was, but-
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes of the closed session, August the 23rd. You're getting both of them here.
Is that it? Just both of them?
Thank you.
Motion to approve Thursday, August 23rd, closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And minutes of closed session of August the 5th.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll pass them back up. Okay, resolution 2012-60, a resolution appointing Tish Johnson to the St. Genevieve Channel 798 Board.
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, check. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, old business, bill number 3884, second reading.
An ordinance amending chapter 715, user charge systems, section 700.080, water use charges, subsection A and subsection B of the St. Genevieve Municipal Code regarding water use charges.
Buck, you made motion, you second that? My second?
I don't know. I have.
I will.
I second.
Okay. Roll call?
Alderwoman Broomfield,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Okenfuss.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger,
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi,
Yes.
Alderwoman Zerwig,
Yes.
Alderman Skaggs.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no. Bill number 3884 now becomes ordinance 3824.
Thank you. Bill number 3885, second reading.
An ordinance amending chapter 715, user charges, section 715.140, sewer charges and billing, subsection D of the St. Genevieve Municipal Code regarding sewer use charges.
Move approved.
Second.
Roll call?
Alderman Skaggs.
Yes.
Alderwoman Zerwig.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Okenfuss.
Yes.
Alderwoman Broomfield.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 3885 now becomes ordinance 3825.
Okay, thank you. New business, bill number 3887, first reading.
An ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2012 budget relating to the Tourism Commission Fund number 017.
Situation here is that the Tourism Tax Commission had allocated $17,500 of their revenue, which was put into the city budget, since we keep the budget for them. At a meeting after that, they authorized additional expenditures, which have been made. So we need to amend that budget line item to reflect the additional expenditures that the Tourism Tax Commission had authorized. It's just a housekeeping amendment.
This is for the new budget coming up, or?
No, this is for our existing
Okay.
budget.
Move approved.
Second.
I guess when Stephanie, she said they wouldn't run over no more.
Well, she didn't do this.
None of her business.
This is about tax.
Tax Commission said, we want to spend this extra money.
She had nothing to do with it.
But we have to amend our budget to reflect the additional money they decided to spend.
This is the board.
But they should live up to living by their means too, shouldn't they?
Well, they're the stewards of the tax revenue. We-
It's their money, isn't it?
We don't get to
They
tell them
collected more money.
what to do with it.
They collected more money.
Well,
So they
right,
turned it
but-
over
Well,
to
they
the
didn't,
fees.
Yeah.
they didn't collect more. They did not allocate all of their money to the city budget.
Correct.
They just decided to spend a little more than they had originally planned. And so it wasn't new money really, it was out of their regular receipts.
Was for us. I mean,
Was
it
for
wasn't-
us,
it
yeah,
wasn't-
we got more money.
Yeah.
And you as a board, have no control over how they spend their money.
So we're just amending our,
We're just making a housekeeping amendment to the
Right.
books balance at the end of the year.
Motion?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
myself and Buck maybe.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill number 3888, first reading.
An ordinance approving the budget for the city of St. Genevieve for fiscal year 2013.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
yeah, I think there's some cuts in there that we can cut a little bit, make it a little more skinny. And, I've never done this before, so.
Just start, go through
Okay,
it.
you ready? I mean, and some things I don't, you know. Okay, on this one, let's see here. Like,
What page?
Seven.
Okay, you need to tell Sue the line items so she can pull it up on her laptop, because she'll have the notes about what it is.
Okay. On the judicial department, it's 52202. It's postage. They have never used postage, and now all of a sudden they're going to $400 for a budget of postage.
I assume they're probably sharing it between
No,
all departments.
we bought a new postage meter that allows us to track expenditures by department, which we could never do before. So we've taken the amount that we ordinarily budgeted for postage, and we spread it out across the departments based on our best guess of what they will use.
Okay.
So that's not an increase for postage, it's just a allocation in a
Okay.
line item that wasn't there last year.
Okay, and then office supplies, they budgeted in 2012, 250, and in 2012 at month 10, on line 52270, they're at 135, and then now they want to take their budget to $2,000?
Software?
That's just because, I mean, the court, since they're
Eric's
taking
gonna,
out
you wanna address that?
I can address that too.
Okay, good.
Since the merger of the police clerk and court clerk, the police department has absorbed some of those expenditures in our budget as far as the office supplies. Some of it will be a little streamlined as far as what paper is being used here, what paper is being used there. But in the past, I believe the court clerk may have taken some of that out of her own pocket, and we've also increased the mailings as far as our cooperation with the courts and the prosecutor as far as keeping track of cases and notifying defendants more so than we have in previous years.
And then the software on line 53537, is that to update the system, or what is that for? It's for $1,500 is the budget proposed for that.
I believe that's the yearly subscription fee and
For the maintenance on the court software, which we never had.
Okay. And then the next one is going to be on administration department, page 9. And it's going to be, let's see here, building repair and maintenance. They had a budget in 2012 for 4,000, and by month 10, they're only at 951, and then they want to go back to a budget of 4,000. Can we change that to decrease it to 1,500?
Let's get a list of the notes of what it is. I think it's the air conditioner on the welcome, or is that her budget?
And that's in her budget. I mean, I think we had talked about doing something with the carpets out there and him helping out the roof.
It's the roof, it's the $1,500 for the roof.
Okay. And then on, it says 2,000 on, go down to line 55945. Are you okay with it, Teddy? That I have
Which one
questions?
on
Page 9.
Page 9, 55945, the infrastructure improvements, and it has 2,000. If we can save money anywhere, we should save money.
Well,
It's not that we're
the
saying
thing
money.
is that Sue, you could have went
Well,
to
but
Sue
you-
and asked her the same questions, and she could have explained them.
It doesn't have to be spent. If it's budgeted, they have a budget item. This is not typical of what we've ever done before. We've had all these budget meetings and none of these questions got brought up. So I think that's probably what Alderman Ross's frustration is, because we're just now getting these questions. We should be passing this budget. We were asked if we had any questions to go over, and now we're going back through every line item through the budget. So
Well, then
this is not,
just let it go.
no,
Let's just go
Alderman
ahead.
Zurich, this is just atypical than what we've done. So, I mean, are we going through line item through the whole entire
No, there
budget
was
tonight?
just some things that I thought we could cut. I mean, do we need 2 new police cars? Can we start with 1?
We've had a process in place. Have you talked to any of the department heads about any of these questions?
No, I have not.
My
So
only
let's go
question-
through go through every line then, because
okay.
you need to know it. It's, I mean,
I just
so.
didn't understand some of it.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
You know, When I have a question,
a
I
job.
go to Sue
I
and
mean,
talk to her.
I do have things I have to do during the day.
Well,
Not
so do
all the
I.
times do I.
I have things too.
We all do.
I'm just go ahead, we'll vote. Go ahead and vote.
If you have questions, ask them.
I'll ask him, I'll vote no, and then I'll ask my questions after I get done.
Why don't we,
That way I don't have to drag the meeting on. Does that make sense?
No, now is the time, I mean, procedurally, this is the right time for you to ask these questions.
Well, there was just like, do,
let's, hang on, let's talk about the 2,000. Sue,
Okay.
do you know what that 2,000, you know it?
That I actually do not have a note on.
Martin,
I don't recall, so I can,
okay.
we had 2,000 there for this year. We didn't spend it, or we just carrying it over.
Um,
The roof is,
Hey, it's great that you're asking these questions, but if you've got them highlighted, I see. If you could have turned that over to Sue, she would have explanation what it is, and if it don't suit you, then
Well, I only got this.
bounce it.
I know we were looking, it's fine. I mean, there are some things that I just, yeah.
Okay,
Sue will be able to.
so we don't,
I mean, can I ask, Chief Bennett
say anything you want.
a question? Do you need 2 new police cars? Can you get by with just 1?
Maybe none.
Maybe none?
ultimately, it's your money, and, I mean, you can decide if it's approved or not. This was based on the 2 vehicle replacement plan that we've had in place for the last 3 years. It was just an effort to continue that plan. The vehicles that we have are aging. They're going to continue to age, and that's unfortunately just a problem that will be anywhere that depends on a vehicle fleet. Again, it was a proposal,
And who gets the new car? Like, when you do get a new car, does that go to the chief, or does that go automatically out in the field?
It
Like,
goes
to
to-
preserve the value of the car? Because you're
Right.
not out running nonstop.
right, it will replace whoever's vehicle is being taken out of the fleet. If whoever has the highest mileage or the vehicle that's costing us the most in maintenance will be taken off the road, and they will be replaced with the new vehicle. I typically drive the oldest car in the fleet for dependability reasons. Currently, I have a 2010, but it's the SUV, which again is more suited to administration than patrol, and that was the reason that I acquired that. So the new cars don't automatically go to me. No.
Well, I mean, I just don't, 2 is,
Can you give us a list of the cars and mileages?
Off the top
I mean,
of my
not
head.
right now, but,
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I would like to have had it during the
Because it's
budget.
50,000.
Alderman
process
Stuckey, you've
No.
had this budget for 2 months. You approved the 2 new car replacements the last few budgets that we've had, and you're just asking this when you knew that we were voting on this budget tonight, and you're gonna put the chief on the spot tonight about this?
No, I said for the next meeting, but I want to go to another question. How many meetings do we really have on the budget this year?
I'd say at least 4.
I think 3. And normally, we had 2 departments a night to go through. We went through, 6 departments in one night with hardly any questions? I mean, I feel the same way as Shauna. I mean,
How
I'm
come you
sorry.
didn't, how come you're just
And I
bringing
accept
this up now tonight
responsibility
when
for that.
we're voting
I
on
just
it?
read your comments
we
last
wanted to bring it up the other night, but you just wanted to hurry up and get out of here. and
Who's used?
Everybody. They said, let's just go through with it and move on.
I don't remember saying that. Buck, do
I
you
don't
remember
either.
saying that? I don't think I tried to
I mean,
rush through the
this
budget.
is the first year, correct, that we went through, 6 in one night? We always had 2 per night?
We had
Because we asked them where they could
depends.
cut and
It
everything
depends.
else.
It depends on which departments there were. Some were bigger than others. We went through 4 or 5 in some nights. When you had the judicial and the admin and tourism, and we went through 4 or 5 in some nights.
Oh, one year we sat out at the firehouse and went through,
4, 5, 6
yeah,
of
we
them.
were
Yeah.
out there for hours. Yeah, good time.
Well, it will not be handled that way next year.
I hope not.
And it's just confusing to me.
I got the message.
Y'all had the right to say whatever, if it took till midnight, and we had to sit here and do it, why didn't somebody speak up? Why didn't somebody say something? Everybody walked out of here last week thinking we were agreeable on the budget, and now we're sitting here, it sounds like we're at square one. Why didn't somebody say something? If we had to sit here till midnight, we would have done it, or had another meeting, but no, I mean, the meetings got over early enough, and nobody had any questions.
Well, I did. I said I couldn't run my business like we're running this. It's in the paper.
How,
Paper.
I got a
What's
question.
paper
That's
got
a
to do with it?
statement.
Who are we robbing to pay Paul? Who are we robbing? I don't understand
Like
your.
your tip and everything else. To keep
Robbing the tip.
You're not. How are you robbing the tip?
borrowing from it.
Do you know how the TIF works? The TIF expires. Those funds that we don't use go back into the general funds.
You don't have to vote no on the budget tonight, you can. But this will
Somebody-
come again to us.
If
We'll see
you-
it
if you
again.
got- if
So it's your
you're not
choice.
comfortable, if the majority of you guys aren't comfortable doing this tonight, you wanna vote to table it, and we can, I mean, we gotta get it done by the end of the month, one way or the other.
Mayor, it's been motion made and seconded.
Okay. Well,
This is the first reading.
Yeah.
It's the first reading. We got time.
And I just don't know the technicalities of some things, and it's my error. I know,
Keep
but it
asking
just came in
questions.
this official pack like this, and it was serious.
You can blame the soup for that.
It felt serious when it came in this
Did I
pack
balance
like
the budget?
this.
Then you did. I think we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, as far as police vehicle replacement, that is something that has been in place for, what, 3, 4 years now?
At
3
least.
years.
At least.
So, I know you gotta upgrade your fleet.
It's to
We
keep
do
a
that with
rotation
the
going so
buses,
that we
you know.
don't get hit with like 4 at a time.
Right.
If we can just do 1 or 2 at a time, we can keep things rotating and we're current.
When was the
If we
last
get
time you had
behind-
vehicles replaced?
We've
Last year,
replaced 2 a
too.
year. We
We-
bought,
we've
we
We've
bought,
been doing 2 a
Every
year.
2 years?
we bought
Or every-
6. We bought 6 in 2007. I started in 2008. Since then, we've replaced 2 a year in hopes that
You never had
we'll be in a
prices.
5-year rotation. Our oldest car will be 5 years. It'll still have some resale value.
Right.
We can sell that, buy the equipment, and have a decent fleet. I mean, the fleet is one of the first things people see when they come to the town.
John,
It-
we had, how many work sessions do we have about our lease and purchase and this, the whole replacement of the fleet? I mean, you were here. How many meetings did we have about how we wanted to handle vehicle replacement for the police department?
But doesn't your priorities change, even like in your business? You're in a rental.
I
Things do
absolutely.
change
They
down
do
the road.
change, but you're just bringing this up at the 11th hour. Where were you at for the last month asking these questions? That's why I'm frustrated, because literally you're waiting to the 11th hour. We've got a budget due October 1st, and you're bringing up these very detailed questions now at the 11th hour. That's where I'm frustrated.
If we went by department, this would have never happened.
It's my fault, I'm sorry, I should have known. I should have waited.
Do you have every right?
You do have, I mean,
No, that's right. That's true.
Sue's an expert.
Okay, I don't think we ever answered the 2000 infrastructure improvement section, that question.
Well, money in infrastructure was for carpets, repair the roof, it was allocated in items.
Okay.
It's easy to take out. And no, the city will
it just goes
not be
back
less
in,
effective if we don't have.
it just
prepared
goes back
carpet.
into the general fund. So I mean, we can always amend the budget October 2nd, change any of these items we want as well. I mean, it's just like we did tonight, we changed, in September, we changed the tourism, the tax commission, on the what's today, 13th of September, 2 weeks before the whole fiscal year's over, we changed the budget, last year's budget. So we have the ability, we've had this argument, I believe it was last year before last, about the Main Street Park. We put the money in there for the Main Street Park. with the contention that we would have the debate again, and we had the debate again after the budget was passed, and we agreed to keep the way it was budgeted, and we spent the money on Main Street Park. That was very contentious, right, Alderman Stupi?
Well, you said we're just gonna put it there.
We put it in there, and then we had the discussion before we built it, and we had the discussion again about going forward, and there was a vote again about spending that money, and we voted to move forward with that project. So, and you might not have felt like you want to do that project, but you had to say it again to do it again. Just like the Channel 798, you know, we put the money in there so that it was there and budgeted, and so it shows that you have your priorities. It's a living, breathing document, just like, you know, Alderman Joker says all the time. It can be amended at any time.
If you feel, you know, whether it's $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, if you feel at this point that you want to take that back out and save it, spend it somewhere else, you can do that right now if you want to. If you want to try to make some of those cuts, you can. You can leave it in there.
I'm okay with her making all the cuts she wants right now. I don't feel comfortable if the department head's not here. I don't think it's fair to that department head that we've already said that we've okayed their department budget, and then, you know, any of the department heads that are here, I'd say it's fair, but I don't think it's fair to a department head that's not here, us to go changing his or her budget.
And it's still wide open till the second reading. You got 2 weeks. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I can pledge to you that I will have each department here at the next meeting. And so at
Or do
that
we
time,
need a work session?
we can have a work session.
No, I'm just asking.
We can do that.
What do you prefer, Sean? You want a work session?
And it just came in with, and I was like, oh, it's serious. But there are more little things, like, I guess maybe I didn't see them before, and I always look through, and it takes me a while to understand the whole process and everything. But then when I officially look through and then you compare it, you do all the comparisons, there was some things that I thought,
Maybe the
well,
best
maybe
thing-
we could save that money and then put it like toward Porter Street, or, you know what I mean? Just shave just a little bit here and there after the whole Porter Street talk last time.
Well,
Because, and that's what kind of really
Porter
brought it
Street
up.
is budgeted.
But that's gonna kind of,
Well, there's going to be 130, I forget the exact figure, 1,000 that is available for transportation improvements that you did not budget. And our discussion was that we kind of wanted to see where we stood. We weren't going to allocate those funds just because we could. That we keep those in the item, so you'll see the budget change shows the transportation budget was amended by that amount. And that's going to be uncommitted, even after you adopt this budget. Now, if you take that $2,000 out, it's going to go into the general fund, and the general fund balance will be increased by $2,000. It'll just, until you choose what to do with it, it'll sit in the anticipated surplus in the general fund. Any cut you make like that will either go into the fund from which it came, where it's obligated, like the transportation money, we can't move it to administrative, or it'll go into the general fund. And as Alderman Steiger said, we can adopt the budget, and the next day we can say, you know, I gave it some thought, and I wanted to take this out of here and move it over here, whatever we do. But we can't not adopt a budget.
we can't?
No.
We're not the federal government. We're not the federal government. We're regulated by the state. Feds gotta make their own rules.
So we'll just leave it at, and then discuss it. Are we gonna do a work? No, I don't think
We need to vote.
maybe I need to do a work session with Sue.
Sue can answer every.
We got-
It sounds like Alderman Stupi has questions too, though. I mean,
Yeah.
if we need to have another work session, let's have another work session. It's the most important piece of legislation we pass. And it does kind of set the precedence for where our priorities are.
You can change it, table it, and do 2 votes. You can change your motion, table this and do 2 votes, or I guess pass this one and amend it on the second vote. Do either one of those? Mr. Elton?
It becomes an emergency if you don't pass it tonight. It's-
And you can stop it down the road, too.
So, whichever way you want to do it, and we can have a work session in between.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
I think that sounds good. Let's
We have
go
a
ahead
motion
and
on the
we're
floor.
on it
Discussion.
tonight. We'll have
Yeah,
a
we
work
got it.
session, discuss items,
All right,
I
so
mean,
there's
there
a
were some
motion and a
things that we
second
passed
on,
last time we met that we might want to reconsider again.
there's a motion and a second on the first reading. Any more discussion? Okay. All in favor of first reading? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Now, in the meantime, if you'll see if you can get your questions answered with the administrative staff, that'll limit the number of things that we have to discuss later.
Okay.
And likewise, if you'll let Sue know what your issues are, we can make sure at the work session, we don't have to call in Brenda if you don't have a question for Brenda. We'll just have, have the appropriate director here.
Okay, at the end of the meeting, we'll pick a date to have a work session. Bill number 3889, first reading.
An ordinance specifying the criteria for issuance of a residential parking permit.
Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Toma? We'll kind of go paraphrase this for us.
Sure. It was brought to our attention that there are a number of residences in St. Genevieve that don't have off-street parking, and that the property in front of their house may be restricted parking, so they really have no place to park. So through this, we will authorize the establishment of these restricted parking areas, and the issuance of permits to people who may be allowed to park in that otherwise restricted area with the displaying of their permit. So it's limited to the residents that is at that location, so they don't park in any no parking place. They just have limited to that one. And for each one, you will adopt an ordinance authorizing. And this is the first one, the one on Second Street that came to speak to you. Third Street, I'm sorry, Third Street.
My other question was, why we have two ordinances? One is for the permit and one is for the zone? The 3891, bill number 3891. So that was what had me.
3890 allows you to do it. 3891 is exercising the authority that you
No,
create by 3890.
3890 is the Ridgeway.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
3889
Yeah.
says we've adopted the ordinance that says we can do this, and 3891 is the first one you're doing.
Okay. Okay, it's the 3891 is specific for the Third Street area one.
Right.
Okay.
But people still can use that parking spot.
It's restricted.
You gotta get a parking permit. You gotta have a
Only someone with a permit can park there.
permit. So if you wanna park in that spot, you come down to City Hall for $4 and get a permit. Then you can park anywhere where parking permits
No,
are.
specific spot. It goes to specific spots.
Eric would like to speak. Oh, you don't want to speak?
You want me to address?
Oh, come on up.
I'm curious what the tourist parks there.
I guess we can give them a ticket if we want.
As City Administrator Toma explained, this won't allow anybody with a residential parking permit for number 1, 4th Street to park at any restricted areas, so they can't go to school and park all day in a 2-hour parking zone. It will be restricted to their residents. So if they live, for example, this ordinance 3891 is specific to the 3rd Street residents that doesn't have any off-street parking. So there will be some, assuming that the ordinance goes through, some parking restriction in place, either a 15-minute or no parking, whatever it happens to be, and then the residential parking permit will allow them to park in that spot without any criminal traffic enforcement.
Eric, theoretically, if we ended up with a second one of these, it gives you the right to park in either one of them, technically, or is it only?
Well, it will, with the use of our mobile data terminals, we'll be able to track which permit number is to which specific residence.
Can we do that? Can you do it? Can we do that?
The
Is it your intention that
you got a restricted parking spot, 2 hours or 15 minutes or whatever, and the resident will not have to comply.
Correct.
But it's not, that parking spot is not to be used exclusively by the resident.
Correct.
If you
I-
read section 2,
I don't know if we're saying that.
if you read section 2, last sentence of section 2, the residential parking permit will not allow permit holders to park in restricted parking zones other than the residents specified on the permit application. So when they come in, they're gonna apply with their assumed address
To that spot.
to that spot, correct? With that last sentence in there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the resident comes home in the evening and there's a car lawfully parked there, they just gotta find another place to park,
Correct.
which is kind of what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Correct.
Or, since it's gonna be restricted to a time frame. I mean, that
But we're
person
not
could
setting
be
out what that
leaving-
time frame is.
No, there's no
in-
time
in-
frame
in
on it. It's
our
Just 2
ordinance.
24/7.
No, it doesn't say 2 hours.
No.
It declares it a restricted time
Right.
zone.
And this was kind of in addition to an ordinance we already had on the book for the school zones. It's a 2-hour parking to restrict children, the kids that drive to school from parking there all day, eliminating the people that live there from parking in front of their house. So it's restricted to a 2-hour. If we get there and see that they're in violation of the 2-hour without a residential parking permit that goes to that address, then there would be some traffic.
So you're gonna come back with a recommended restriction on that spot,
Correct.
whether it's
And that's, I believe that's what
overnight or,
3891 is going to do, is going to actually establish that restriction for that specific location.
It does not. It just gives the location.
But there's no restriction now, so it's establishing.
So it's creating this zone for 24/7.
Yeah, whatever, is it a 15-minute or
I
a
didn't-
2-hour
I
parking?
don't
No,
think it's
there's no-
specified on there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Would you advise that we do that?
well, we can't enforce against the general public if we don't determine how long
Correct.
a parking permit we're gonna do. What this ordinance does is say this is a particular area that we wanna regulate. But it doesn't say how we're gonna regulate it. It doesn't say whether it's gonna be no overnight, 2 hours, 15 minutes. And then the other ordinance says that if you have this permit, you're not subject to this restriction. If you get there quick enough.
Right.
Or if you stay there. If you keep your car parked there, then no one can, of course, use that spot.
But if you come home and somebody's got that spot, you just,
Have to wait for it to become available.
it's
You know,
kind of what they're doing now.
Kind of off the subject, I was in Cape Girardeau the other day, and people sort of on their own take traffic cones, plastic traffic cones, and
Make your own.
make their own no parking areas so that they have a place to park when they get back from
Chicago.
school or whatever it may
In
be.
Chicago, they use lawn chairs.
Lawn chairs. But this is a reasonable way to regulate it. What it does, it just says that the homeowner is not going to be ticketed for violating the restricted parking that you haven't adopted yet.
But when we do 3891,
That really doesn't do anything.
I mean, but can we put a time frame in that?
You will have to, or
This one.
otherwise it's just a meaningless
What-
ordinance.
Well, I think what it's written for now is a no parking there as opposed to some type of limited parking, which I
That's
think
what the intention of that is?
No, I think the intention was, and I may not have conveyed that, I probably didn't.
I didn't see
was-
3891.
Was some type of limited parking, whether it be
You haven't seen?
15-minute or 30-minute
It
time
was in
frame.
there, it just had an extended sentence on it.
It says restricted
So
parking.
you're gonna make 3891 no parking?
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that.
It just says restricted parking.
So we gotta figure out how we're gonna restrict it. What's the limit?
Well, that can be recommended by the police department, I guess.
Well, what do
Because-
you recommend?
And the thought here was that it's a busy portion of the area. We don't want to restrict otherwise business, merchants from parking somewhere to quickly enter a business and get out. We didn't want it to affect. And that's
that's one of the criteria in 3889 is there will be an application process, and we'll evaluate if it's going to hinder some business allowing somebody to park there all the time. But at the same time, I think we want to be fair to the residents that have limited parking, carrying groceries 2 blocks or whatever because they can't find a parking spot near the residence. Just a way to try to keep this as fair to everybody as we could. So-
Chief, I think the city would have an issue if we made it no parking except for the resident.
Right.
I mean, I think you and I talked, I don't think you can give
And
people
again, I think I
private
just
parking
failed to
spots.
convey that
No.
correctly.
Because it's a public street, the public has a right to use it. But we have a right to regulate it, and we also have a right to give a private property owner a pass on the extent of the restrictions. But if you absolutely ban parking except for that one, for the resident, that's probably.
Can we establish that time frame tonight for the first reading, or will that need to be amended?
You can amend the ordinance. So are you thinking like a 15-minute parking area or
15
1
minute
hour?
Or
Or
30 minute would be sufficient.
There's a lot of courthouse parking down there.
Right.
When they're really busy.
I think you'd have to.
I think you
weigh
may
the-
want to think about it and talk to the courthouse folks, because I think maybe a 2-hour might be
But I think if
appropriate.
you're weighing somebody that's coming for a docket that could be there all day versus somebody that lives there and will have no parking to the residents, there should be some balance there as far as being fair to both. I understand the concept, but if somebody that's gonna be there one
would you
time
be
for
okay
one
with just
docket-
starting with a 30-minute?
I think a 30-minute would be sufficient.
And I think you ought to think of, if this comes up again, you're not gonna want one place gonna be 30 minutes and this other place
Right.
gonna be an hour.
Yeah.
Try to keep some kind of consistency, or you guys go nuts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
I'll
point.
tell you that the parking regulations around Perry County Courthouse are 2 hours.
Yeah, 'cause if people are there parked there and they're eating, 15 minutes, like at Ciro's or Big Fish Cafe.
Yeah, 30
15
minutes is not that long.
Or 30 minutes, sorry. 30
But
minutes is not-
that's the courthouse square in Perryville.
There's no residence.
Well, I mean,
It's 2 hours.
30
Affected
minutes
by
over
that.
on Third Street is not that long. If somebody wanted to park there and go to a restaurant or something.
They've got bigger square area.
I mean, can we do the first reading and then?
Move to approve bill number 3889. I don't think there's any controversy on that one yet.
Yeah, second.
Okay, all in favor, first reading of 3889?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 3890, first reading.
An ordinance amending Schedule 3 parking restrictions, Table 3C, no parking during certain times of the St. Genevieve Municipal Code.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill number 3891, first reading.
An ordinance creating a restricted parking zone on 3rd Street.
A discussion. So do we want to amend this to have a 30-minute, 30-minute parking to start with?
Do you think 30
I
minutes
agree.
is long?
I don't know. I think that's a good place to start. I don't know. And I know you're right. If you sometimes
If
you get
somebody-
delayed at a restaurant, you're there for 45 minutes or an hour
What ward is that? What?
downtown.
Yeah.
I follow the ward lead on that.
You could write a lot of things, you're gonna be there an hour.
45
If you're
minutes?
there over lunch hour, you're gonna be there 45 minutes to an hour.
We're gonna have to, we're gonna have to allow people for lunch and all that. I'll say no
I think so.
shorter than
And I think most
Yeah,
times the residents are not there for lunch hour. So if you did a 30-minute,
Maybe we come home to Bologna.
that'll be one thing I think we've helped them quite a bit. If we did a 30-minute, or an hour, I mean.
Yeah, no, I think 30
Hour
might
is
be
less than an hour.
minimum.
I think so too. I think 30 is a little short myself.
Okay, so we'll make a motion then
An hour?
to change, to the time restriction in an hour.
Move to approve with the, to amend to add an hour time restriction on the restricted parking zone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public comments, I don't think we have anybody. Okay, under other business, we have a discussion about vacating the right-of-way on LaCroix Street. And that resident is here. Bet you can.
I brought some more paper for you guys. If you want to take one and pass them down. There's 3 separate handouts. Did everybody get one of the 3? Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sandy Meyer. And in January of 2012, I purchased my home in a double lot located at 597 Glenda Street in the city of St. Genevieve from Gary and Stephanie Tomlinson. And I'm here this evening to request for the Board of Aldermen to allow me to acquire ownership of the strip of property that runs between my 2 lots, which is currently owned by the city. I've been maintaining it besides my own property since I moved there in March. And it's partially busted up blacktop. And if I owned it, I would like to eventually haul dirt in there and plant grass seed and just kind of dress it up because I want my yard to look nice. And I love where I live. It's peaceful, it's quiet, and the neighbors are wonderful. And you know, I've been mowing it, and I have to take a push mower down there and weed eater because there's no way to get my rider down there. That's why I would eventually kind of fill it in and plant grass seed and stuff. But I really don't feel like I should have to maintain the city's property, which I've been doing since I moved there. I've never seen anybody come and cut the grass or anything. And then when I started speaking to some of you guys, I was told that there's been talk of putting a golf cart on the property maybe at some point down the road. And I don't know, does the city have funds to like build a bridge and spend money to do something like that when there's so many other things that they could be spending their money on the city, you know, make repairs to the streets that they already own? To me, that's just more important. And I've been talking to some of my neighbors, and they, as well as myself, are very concerned. Well, for one thing, if that path is put in, it's going to be like just a few yards from my home. And who's going to be there from the city to maintain it, to patrol the path, and ensure that it's being used safely? And I know how kids are. I have 3 kids of my own. You know, there's always going to be kids down there. It's going to disrupt the privacy of the neighborhood. There's going to be security issues. I know there's motorized golf carts, mopeds, scooters. It's going to be noisy. There's going to be all kinds of people back there. And I know how kids are. You know, if someone's in the neighborhood and has a motorcycle or a 4-wheeler, even if they're not supposed to, as long as nobody's back there watching them, they're going to be zooming back and forth. There'll be kids down there by the creek. And there's a lot of pedestrians and people who ride their bikes in our neighborhood right now. And my neighbors and I just feel like it would be very disruptive and create more traffic, noise, and be a disturbance to an otherwise peaceful and quiet neighborhood. And it would, if there's golf carts zooming around, it's going to feel like we're living in a golf course. And none of us really want that because it's, like I said, I love living there. It's peaceful, it's quiet. I try to keep my yard looking nice. I have a double lot. It's a lot to maintain. and I don't mind doing it. I don't mind working hard, but I don't feel like I should have to be maintaining the city's property, which actually I think goes to the road. And so I don't know. I would really appreciate it if you would transfer ownership to me, because I want my yard to look nice. And I know I could call down and say, can someone come and mow? But how often are they going to do that? And because it's just a narrow strip. Most of you have seen it. A lot of it is busted up blacktop. And I just want my yard to look nice. And I don't want to disrupt the neighborhood. And I know most of my neighbors, I've talked to like 5 other people, and they're very adamant that they do not want that as well. And if I need to bring them to the next meeting with me to voice their opinion, I can. I mean, that's with very carefully. It's actually dangerous, and that's why eventually I would like to haul some dirt in there, and I want to make it look nice. And honestly, like, kids walk back there all the time on their way to school, and I have no problem with that, or ride their bikes. I have 3 kids of my own. If they would have wanted to do that, well, I would have appreciated if someone left them do that. But I do not want a golf trail with golf carts just a few yards from my home, because I know what's going to happen. There's already a couple kids that have 4-wheelers over there, and they ride down like in their lot till late at night, zooming back and forth, and even that's kind of annoying, but I'm not going to say anything to them because that's their property, and I want to get along good with my neighbors. And the neighbors back there, they're very friendly, and they all feel exactly the same way I do. So,
Okay.
that's my story.
Any questions for her?
I mean, she owns both lots, so I don't think it's a,
Thanks, Sandy. Thank you.
Were we supposed to, was there another one that we were going to talk about tonight as well?
It's just this.
Well, if there ain't no more questions, I'd make the motion to abandon it and let her have it.
second.
All discussion. Okay, we got a first and second.
To abandon it?
Yeah.
You have to do it by ordinance, but you could make a motion to direct the preparation of the ordinance.
I don't know, I think the city needs to kind of step back a little bit and take a look at all this property they're looking at that they want to vacate. We've had some problems before of a couple areas that we already approved. And then we had one person that wanted to take over some of the city property, and he's withdrawn his proposal because of issues. But I think we need to take a look, because one thing is that we just get bits and pieces of vacated land with really no plan at all as far as the city.
Well, she owns both lots, so there's no conflict about dividing the lot, or dividing the strip, yeah, I mean, and there is a massive, like, dip, right? I mean, street-wise, I mean, if it was a street, it would be, and I agree with her, I don't think golf carts are, I mean, there's water that goes over the bridge, and, I think it's just not a feasible.
Well, I'm just saying that we should maybe postpone this and then take a better look at what the city is doing with this land. Not the specific this partial, but other partials too, that, I don't know if planning and zoning have identified other properties
Well,
too, or?
we could identify every right-of-way that is mapped for which there is no road. Need to take a little research, but we can do it.
I think we need to take a look at all of it. and then see how it fits into
I mean, off the top of my head,
what
would
the
be
city
like
is doing.
7th Street at Jefferson. Seven- It's platted across Jefferson, but it was never built.
I think it's
Where would that be at?
You know, coming on, you know, on 7th from the school from Washington,
Oh, okay.
you hit Jefferson and there's a driveway in front of it. So that driveway is actually a road easement.
I still think there'd be no, I mean, she owns both lots. I mean,
And all the neighbors around her, like she said.
Well, I'd like to, that's not completely correct. And I've got to be careful on how I speak, because I just recently bought a piece of property almost adjoining that, with the thought that when we had these discussions nearly a year ago with the master, to try to create a master plan for hiking and biking, that was one of them. So, and I know also another property owner that's right across from there that's also was hoping that could get developed for
Scooters and
for
golf
pedestrians.
carts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Well, no, mainly it was pedestrians
there is
and
a pedestrian
bicycles.
walkway. There is people that walk through.
well, it's on private property. They have to walk through private property to get to that. So I'm just not ready to make a decision on it because I think we need to have some more discussion about it.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah.
Because the city owns this piece over here by Gerald Blackler too, which
I just
also
hope it's
connects
not
to
gonna be a
this.
personal agenda
Yeah, well,
for
I think we need to
specific
take a
type of
look at it.
homes. That's what
I think it's for
Be a little
anything.
more educated in
Well, I
what
mean, I
we're
think it's
doing.
more for
Yeah.
scooter.
Any more discussion?
I just look at the liability the city's in there and safety issues. When I went up and looked at it the other night,
Yeah, I think-
somebody could drive off right in the creek. There's a lot of
That's
safety
possible,
concerns there.
yeah.
A lot of
And I
places.
don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
there isn't, I mean, is there any funding for, I mean, we're already trying
We
to,
don't have good roads now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know we had Dave Pinkley go out there and look at it and to open it back up, you know, for pedestrian bikes, scooters, golf carts. It wouldn't take anything but dirt work to move that and to make it into a feasible path. So that was what, you know, he had said in the past, because it was actually a city road that the city maintained. That was the only way back into that subdivision as of about 15 years ago or somewhere in there. So, and I understand what Mrs. Meyer's concerns are too. Absolutely. So again, I'm kind of in a, I purchased property there because I thought that was going to be a possibility that would be open. So
I think your dad lives there, that's probably why you live.
well, he owns a lot right across the street from it. So, and his thought maybe down the road was to put some other housing there, and that would make it more tractable to somebody that would want to buy back there, that they have more access than just one place to get in and out of
Yeah,
the
but you
property.
see how it looks kind of almost like a personal agenda to put a scooter golf cart path there? I mean, you have three.
That was discussed year and a half ago at least.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't.
How do we,
And Sandy, I have a question for you. The previous homeowners, how long did was they trying to vacate that property as well?
Yes, and I do know that the neighbor on the other side of you, the Wallemanders, they're very against it as well. And the Drums, and Jewel, and Cariotti, and everybody.
And
I
Gerald
talked-
Blackler, he come and talk to me.
And I talked to Beck Blackler today, and he definitely does not want it. None of us do. We don't, well,
How do you
except
get
you, Mr. Steiger.
one side of town to the other?
I don't know. I think your father, does he own that lot?
The empty lot, yeah.
Okay. Everybody surrounding me were all very adamant that we do not want it, and I'm sure that they will come to the next meeting if they know that it will make a difference. And is the city gonna come and mow it every week and weed eat it, so I don't have to do it? Cause, you know, it's a lot of work. I have a double lot. and
How
I
long
don't-
was they maintaining that property prior to you?
Probably, how long did they live there, 6 years? I thought Stephanie told me 6 years.
So, I mean,
And
Yeah, I don't think anybody's, you know, doubting your patronage of keeping the place looking nice. I think that's,
Yeah.
well, and same way with Gary. I think Gary did a great job when he was there as well. So I don't think anybody's doubting that. Until we come up with an idea of what we want to do with the property, I think it behooves us to not give away property if there's potential use for it. I mean, if we look at the greater good for the city, if that's something that the board feels like, then I don't think we need to vacate the property at this time until we've had that discussion.
Jill, do you have something to say? Do you have any?
We're trying to make the community more accessible to seniors and for all citizens. So that's.
It's not really accessible. I don't think it's accessible. I mean, it's back a dead-end road.
Going in under that truss line.
Accessible for scooters and golf carts, but not for pedestrians, I mean, the normal pedestrian
Walks through private property.
or walks up the normal streets.
That's
I
why it
mean-
was abandoned many years ago and made the entrance the other way, to make access to that subdivision.
People can't even drive back there because of the depth. And I think at one time it was even condemned, is what Mr. Gately's daughter told me. But they're very against it as well.
I still vote to
Did,
abandon it, yeah.
did the city crew come by and cut the revetted ditch there? You did not? I asked that the city crew come by, and there were some tall weeds in the revetted
If
ditch.
they did,
The
I-
rocked ditch?
If they did, I didn't know.
You mean back behind our house?
They did not. Okay, thank you.
If they, I work during the day, but the weeds are all still there. I weeded what I could, and I would put probably more rock in there to make it look nicer. But you're gonna have to do a lot of work if you're gonna put any kind of road or some type of bridge. People are gonna cross. And like I said, I know how kids are. I have 3 on my own. There's gonna be 4-wheelers zooming by there. Who's gonna be patrolling it and making sure that these young kids aren't running their motorcycles across it? Even when those 2 4-wheelers down at the neighbors, which I don't care if they're kids, but if they're just a few yards from my house, I am gonna care. It's gonna be a nuisance, and there's gonna be a lot more people. I mean, I walk a lot. I usually walk every evening. We have plenty of places to walk. We have a great subdivision to walk. We have the community center. We can go downtown and walk downtown.
It's too dangerous. It's got water over
Why
it.
can't we just spend city funding repairing the roads that are already there that need repaired? Unless you guys, I have no idea how much money you have in your budget, but do you honestly have money to spend on something like that? When so many of the roads need resurfaced?
Do you have a question?
I don't even think we're
And
talking
I'm
about that.
willing,
I mean, I don't even think we've gotten to that point where we're talking about putting a bridge or a road or anything. I think we're just talking about future.
We're not even
that's
talking
looking
about
at-
putting in
No.
golf carts in there yet.
No,
or anything
no,
like
that's
that.
not even discussion.
You
What
know,
I'm,
That was considered a year and a half ago, different outlets to get people from one section to another section. And a lot of seniors have asked for access back and forth between
but
sections.
if you keep it, are you gonna come and maintain it every week? Are you gonna mow it?
Well, I guess the city would have, if it's city property.
With all the rest of the stuff that they have to do.
yeah, they do.
So someone
A
from the
piece of-
city's gonna come there every week and mow and weed
I wouldn't say every week,
Oh,
probably
I
every
mean,
other
I
week.
can't
They
tell,
do, there's a
street department
piece
what to
across
do.
from my street, from my house like that, a strip that the city owns, and there's neighbors on both sides, and they come there a couple times a month and mow it.
Because I've never seen them there once since I owned the
Well,
property.
you probably mow it so nice that they don't need to. You probably take such good care of it.
I know,
They
but
don't
I,
need to.
I shouldn't have to do that for someone.
Yeah, I agree.
And Stephanie said that she had never seen.
my-
We gotta make the residents happy.
There's no conflict because on both sides of it, she owns both pieces
But
of property.
what okay, this is what I'm saying. You see this piece up here by Uncle Beck that's, it says City of St. Genevieve? What happens to that?
I just got a
Stays there.
text
It's
from
ours.
the
Yeah, I know.
the maintenance
Would it
manager.
behoove us to
and he
have
said that they
this
sprayed
piece to
that
go with that?
rock
So
ditch
maybe
yesterday.
it'll take a few days for them to
But
dry.
this- here's what I'm
curbs
talking
at
about.
the
We own this.
They
If we
spray
give
after
this
you
what
away,
she
take
wants.
that
if we give this
across.
away, what
I
does
just,
this
his
do
text
here?
said
Do
you
we
sprayed
need
it,
this
and he-
piece
I
out
guess he
here?
did it the other morning when he
You know
said he
what
was
I'm
going to.
Yeah,
If we're gonna do
if
something here.
you wouldn't have asked them, they wouldn't have.
That's
They
right.
never-
Makes sense?
Well, if you would have talked to me, I'd have done the same thing immediately that I did.
Okay,
Okay.
The
we're
grass
gonna
is
make a
up.
decision tonight.
I mean, we can do this, in motion in a second to prepare an ordinance to abandon it. Or we can go ahead and prepare that and let you vote on the ordinance. Or, I mean, or you can vote on, well, you're gonna vote on this to prepare the ordinance, so. Get a motion in a second to prepare the ordinance.
And you're not really landlocked. I know you said that, Martin.
No, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I would say, because you were like, well, we'd be landlocked, and I was like, no, I'm not. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that you're not landlocked because of that.
Isn't this like just a section of what the city owns? That's he's requesting for.
Are we talking, my question is,
You
are
know-
we talking about,
Don't we own the whole
Yes.
roadway?
are we,
But she doesn't want the whole roadway.
No, she just
Oh.
wants just right here before the creek.
Okay, that's gonna have to be surveyed and,
yeah, because
It's already
There's-
surveyed.
you're gonna,
Oh, it's
you're
already
wanting just
surveyed.
right in the middle of
It's
the
part
creek.
of the city survey.
Basically.
Well,
what
we need
it
a
looks
legal
like.
description of what we're.
Yeah.
Right, right. So it'd be right in the
Okay.
middle of the creek, is what it looks
No,
like.
it's not in the middle of the creek. Here,
not
look
in
at this
the-
picture, it's
on
better.
this side.
That color one
Yeah,
is
I'm
a
not
lot
really
better.
sure
Yeah,
what,
I just went from my property to the edge of the creek, because that's what I have been maintaining.
On the edge.
But it really
Okay, yeah,
doesn't
that's what
go
I'm talking about.
down to the creek. It's really like a couple feet
Right.
You're just,
above the creek,
You know,
yeah.
there's
You're
like
just
busted
talking
up
to here.
blacktop.
Yeah,
Right here to here.
because if the city owns this piece over
yeah, they
here,
have,
They can get
yeah,
access.
we don't need to be giving this piece away
No.
because that can be added to
Oh, yeah,
this.
that'd be all right.
yeah, because then
We're
you would
talking
be
about
landlocked.
just this
This
piece.
right here.
Yeah,
There's a
I
pipeline
still
that
vote
comes
to-
right through here too. Natural gas. Right up through here.
Then that cuts you in half right here and does not give you any access out this way,
This
once you
used to
do
be
that.
Bess's property many years ago.
Hmm?
Bess,
Yeah.
BESS,
Oh,
many, many years ago.
so we get to see the legal description and everything, or?
so
yeah.
you're gonna draw, we brought it up to the table.
I'll just go with
To
title
vacate it.
company and say, tell me how you describe this parcel.
Okay.
All right, we need to know that.
And you're gonna draw it up and then we'll vote on it.
Well, first we gotta vote on, do you want the ordinance prepared?
Yes.
Well, there's a motion and a second. All in favor of preparing the ordinance to vacate that property? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, I got this 6 to prepare the ordinance and 2 against.
So that's 2/3? No.
Wait, did Teddy, did you vote no too?
I vote no.
Carl, yeah.
I think it's just a voice vote. No, I voted, I'm okay with voting on it. Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
problem
To
voting.
prepare
Who's
the
gonna go
ordinance,
to the ordinance?
to vote on the ordinance, yet.
Well, we can have a work session on it too if we need to. I
We
mean,
need to.
after we get the description, you know.
Okay,
Thank you.
so it's gotta go for 2 more readings that Sandy, yes.
Do you want me to bring some of my neighbors to the next meeting? I mean,
Well,
would
yeah.
that be helpful?
Yeah, bring them all.
It'll be
It might actually have to be
on the fourth Thursday,
We like people.
Because there's
same
one
time,
stop.
same place.
Okay, thank you. I
What
appreciate
you do is you abandon and you let the chips fall where they fall. Who owns it
We
is,
don't beat it.
we don't
Right.
need it.
Right.
Okay,
Just right there.
we're still under other
That
business.
off here. Then we got this.
I have come up with some people that I would at this point just call it a downtown development committee to get together and talk about whether we should do a downtown TIF, whether we should do some other kind of financing to help the downtown area, and try to maybe come up with some boundaries depending upon what they think we ought to do. And come back to this board with those recommendations, and if it is a TIF, then we would could go through the TIF process and convene a TIF commission and all those things. So at this point, I've got Tom Couch, Mike Stewart, Mike Fowler, Betty Arnold, Buck. I've asked Buck as the alderman, and also Chauncey would be on that also to kind of direct us as far as what's out there, what's available. Also, Mike Stewart's very familiar with TIFs and those things also, and the financing of them, so he's agreed to do it. So I hope maybe by next week we can get that little group together and start on some recommendations to bring back to this board.
Were you gonna try getting a business person or two? Out, maybe out in the.
There's quite a few of them.
I've got Mike, and then I guess when, this was just to come up with some ideas on, again, boundaries and how to finance it. We'll go from there. And again, it'll all be recommendations coming back to here that you'll all have input in and whatever we want to do, but we need to get started on something. Anything, anybody got anything else?
Yeah, I was stopped by a resident on Leahy Street. Chief, they was wanting to know if you could have extra patrol down there on the stop sign we just voted on a while back. Been some people running it, and they real concerned about that, so. Yeah.
Can't follow it, it's hard to follow.
Anything else?
I had someone come to me, there's a house on Brentwood, I don't have the exact house number, but, it was on the auction block, I think yesterday. Brentwood, yeah, and they're talking about the tall grass, so check out Brentwood for tall grass.
Is that Martin that you tell?
I saw Brenda's job.
No. Yeah, we're in Brenda will out.
Yeah,
We're here tomorrow.
Brentwood.
I'll go look at it.
If it's that tall, we should be able to see it, right? I didn't go there, and they didn't have the number.
Well, you know, I mean, they've been, well, of course with the rings, I guess, they've been doing a pretty good job keeping that cut down. That corner lot, you don't know.
Is that big on the corner?
Yeah, I know. I always get calls through the war.
Are you talking about the one on the corner of Point Days Drive and?
Probably so.
Brentwood, I think.
Yeah, that's about that.
Oh, was that an old, like, beauty salon and
It
stuff?
was.
Is that the one you're talking
I
about?
think it's on it.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's not it, that's not
Terry?
Brentwood. Brentwood is, you know where the cul-de-sac is? It's on the other side. Yeah, no, that's Point Base.
Or whatever for a meeting?
Point
We
Base.
do need to set a date.
Well, that
for
one
a-
too, I heard about that one too.
That's Brookdale.
That's what I thought, okay.
A
Brentwood,
work session and
Brentwood's
preferably
a
the
cul-de-sac off.
right,
24th
off of
and
Parkway.
25th, with Mark being gone next week. If we absolutely have to do that, we can, but I would prefer it to be the 24th and the 25th. Tuesday?
Just a work session for what, I'm sorry?
Budget,
Oh, okay.
second reading.
We're just tentative, we might not need it, but we're gonna set it.
We have
Yes,
a
we
meeting
said
the
it.
25th. We have a Channel 7 meeting the 25th.
We do it,
Do it the
what time's
24th.
that? Oh, we can do it
6 o'clock.
24th.
Unless we do it after.
Monday, okay? Or after your meeting, or after.
Well, we never know how long ours run
No,
though.
because we got a work session.
Here
What
lately,
time, what time we doing it, Mayor?
6, okay? On 6 on the 24th?
Tom?
November 24th.
I won't be here.
I'll put it in there.
On the 24th? Keith's not
Either
gonna be here
one.
neither.
Either one.
I probably can make arrangements, but it'll be hard.
What about Wednesday?
Well, that only gives us a day to get, if there's change, I don't know, can you handle it in a day? I guess we can do it Wednesday, if there's changes.
Anybody, everybody got,
I won't be
We can
here.
do Monday.
Wednesday?
And this is for line items.
Whatever we need to talk about.
Monday be fine.
Monday? Joe's not gonna be here Monday?
If
Monday?
Monday at 6?
we can forego this.
What were you gonna say, Pam?
Okay, so when is it?
I will,
I'll change my plans for Monday.
Monday or Wednesday or when
we
is
can
it?
forego this if you'd like. Just highlight my book and I'll go to Sue and get an explanation.
Well, I'll go to Sue.
When you want to do that?
I'll go to Sue this week and talk to her this week.
As long as you have the agenda posted, your meeting, it doesn't matter what
You have to
items
have
you
the
give.
budget published at least 24 hours before you vote on it at your second reading.
So we're gonna do
So that
Monday?
wouldn't do it, would it?
Monday?
Put the item on the agenda,
Yeah, but if you don't approve it till Wednesday
Oh, we won't
night,
be
you won't
You don't
have
have enough
24
time.
hours to get it up before you vote on it at 7 the next night.
So you'd have to be Monday.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right, Monday at 6. If something changes, obviously we'll let everybody know. Okay, we do need a closed session to talk about personnel. Right?
Move to go into closed.
Second.
Alderman Skaggs?
Yes.
Alderwoman Zerwin?
Yes.
Alderman Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yeah.
Alderman Steiger?
Just
Alderman Eichenthus?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderwoman Brumfield?
Can I hit this?
Motion carries.
Right.